Welcome to the Sober Heathen podcast. I am the Sober Heathen. I'm Scott. It's so nice to have everybody listening that is either listening now or listening in the future. It's a beautiful day here in Michigan. Looks like I got like a rash on my face, but that's actually sunburn because I was outside eating some vitamin D. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening audio only, you don't give a shit, and that's okay too. But today, I have a guest, Belinda. She is a counselor. She's a blogger. She's in long-term recovery, and those are the best kind of guests because not only do they have experience in addiction, but they got a lot of experience in recovery too. So, Belinda, thanks for being on the podcast today. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Scott. I am doing well. And hey, that sun looks good on everybody, man. It
Oh
don't
yeah,
matter.
it's gonna. Yeah, I'm hoping for some really leathery old skin as I age into my later years.
Aha, beautiful.
Yeah. So where are you from? I never asked that.
So I Wisconsin, so not too far
Okay.
away from you. I am in northern Wisconsin, so I'm in a beautiful area. Minocqua is probably the most well-known city by where I'm at.
Okay.
Um, Touristy, very north woods. Just beautiful, beautiful spot.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't think I've had Wisconsin yet on the podcast, so I get to tag another state off. Thank you.
All right.
So, just tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you? You're a counselor now. What got you into that?
Oh, so I became a counselor kind of honestly by accident. So I was working on trying to kind of make my life a little better. I was still in addiction. I actually got the opportunity to go back to school, which was amazing. And once I figured out I could go back to school, I was like, holy shit, I can go to college. So I started actually working on some stuff in the medical field because that was my background. Couldn't pass the typing test for the MA class and was like, well, I still need to do school. So transferred into the substance abuse disorder program. And that's kind of what led me to where I am today, which was amazing because going through those classes and those courses was the big push for me to actually face my own addiction
Okay.
and kind of get to the point where I was like, okay, I had an instructor look at me one time and was like, you need to be healthier than your clients. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay, I felt that. So yeah, that's kind of what led me down the road. I got super excited about it. Figured out I was kind of good at talking to people. Kind of used some of my old superpowers because I was definitely one of those people back in the day. Like I was the plug. I was living that lifestyle on the street. I come from a long line of meth cooks
Oh,
and all of that kind of stuff from back in the day. So yeah, definitely a change. If you would have asked me about 5 years ago if I ever thought I'd be where I am today, I would have been like, no way, no way.
isn't that great? Like one of my favorite sayings is, "Do something today that tomorrow you will thank you for." And
Yeah,
so, looking back now, you're just, I mean,
yeah, just astonished at like how far I've come and what I've been able to accomplish, and just the amazing people that I've been able to meet on the journey. Because this has definitely been a journey about connecting and figuring out who I am and who I want to be, and just meeting people along the way and getting to walk with them.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing to see. I just had a client. They put my cell phone, my personal cell phone, on my business card for some reason at work. But so I'm just rolling with it. And I had an older client. She's in her 60s. Call me yesterday, and she's going through some stuff. And it felt pretty damn good. It was like, who the hell is this calling me? And,
Yeah,
oh, hey, how you doing? How's it going? Well, having a little rough time. And it was really cool. I mean, there's no better medicine than that.
Oh yeah, exactly. I recently talked to a past client from a few years ago, and was one of the inspirations for one of my uh, blog posts here not too long ago. And he was definitely the client that he shared with me that he really faked it to make it through residential treatment. And it wasn't until he got out of treatment, ready to go get in the car in the parking lot to use, when everything just switched up for him, and that was his moment. That was his clarity. That's when everything fell for him the right way, and still sober, doing the damn thing. Him and his wife actually. So you
Awesome.
never know which direction things are going to go sometimes.
Yeah, and you can't like that's the terrible part. Like you can't tell anybody when it's going to happen. So
Yeah,
this dude went through treatment, faked it, and then went to use again. It's like, oh shit, what am I doing?
yeah,
Right? Okay.
yeah. He got in the car with the wife, and instead of the wife getting him a bowl ready to, do it up, she handed him "I'm ready if you're ready."
Oh,
And he basically told me, he's like, "You know what? I could kill myself, but I can't kill her."
okay.
And he said that was that biggest moment for him.
Wow.
So, yeah, pretty incredible story, especially when he first came into residential treatment, him and the wife were both smoking meth on the way to the treatment center,
Oh, yeah.
up until he got out of the car in the parking lot. So definitely an interesting story. Great guy. Has been able to kind of keep in touch here and there, and just an amazing story. Just one of those amazing things that comes through, and got his life back on track. Just lost his mom, unfortunately,
Hmm.
but is still out there being sober, doing the damn thing, and love it, man.
Awesome. That's a great story. So I wanted to go back real quick um, to so going to school. So
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet. But what did you find when you're going through school and getting the education? I always want to ask people this that have been through the addiction itself. How much were these educators educated, or was there educating that you had to do for them a little bit if they hadn't been through it? You know what I mean? Like,
I would say it's a split. I was really lucky. I had an instructor that had been through addiction herself. So
oh,
she
okay,
definitely had some of that credibility. Um, didn't really disclose or share a lot of it, just enough to let you know she had kind of been through the mill. But then on the flip side, I also found myself kind of knowing more per se than what we were being taught. I remember we had NORDAG, which is our Northern Drug Enforcement Task Force up here by where I live. So they came in to like do the drug talk, like bring the samples in, show everybody what the drugs look like, talk about like their investigations and what they do. And I was in the back of the classroom going, yeah, but that's worth about $30, not just $10 on the street anymore. Kind of doing the education thing in the background, talking about, oh yeah, but this pill and that pill, they've got street value now. And the cops were kind of like, who the hell are you and how do you know all this? Um, so a little bit of a 50-50 split on that. But I have to say, realistically, for me, there was enough real world experience there to make it credible.
sure, okay. I was just curious because I know, like, I spent a lot of time in the hospitals,
Hmm.
and I was pretty fortunate that the overwhelming majority of the nurses and doctors that I interacted with, they weren't giant dicks. But I've heard some horror stories, people that just don't get it. They just think that you're just a loser that should just make better choices.
Yep.
Um, so I was just curious how the training went, through that. But definitely having a teacher that's been through it.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying people see. I'm not going to be an uppity recovery person and be like, only we really know, because that's not true. Because I
Yeah.
had some really good counselors that were really good, that really understood, that had never had a problem with addiction.
Hmm.
So that's not what I was trying to say. I was just curious on how it went through the
Yeah.
education system.
No, I totally get it, and I think that makes a big difference too, that authenticity that people can have, even talking about, like, the medical field like you were just talking about. I was actually an EMT for a while, and I worked on the paramedic units that ran out of our local hospitals up here, in our county, 3 or 4 county area, and you'd see the frequent flyers come in, the people that are, detoxing, this is going on, that's going on, and, at that time, it did suck because 'cause you'd see somebody come in and they basically put him in a room, give him a soda, give him a sandwich, give him a bag of fluids, and ship him out the door.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then here the doctors and the nurses just completely jaded about addiction and not having that understanding. Again, going back to that, oh, well, Nobody put a gun to your head and forced you to use. Well,
Yeah.
true, but there's a gun inside my head basically telling me to use.
Yeah.
So, so I think we've seen better education in the past few years. I think some of that stigma is dropping off, but it's still there, and it's hard. It's hard even for myself because I'm in recovery and my medical files are all like red flagged, of past addiction, and you still run into it. I mean, it's definitely still out there, but you know, hopefully the stigma is, dropping, and we just got to keep educating people and talking about it.
Yeah, I went to a treatment center called Harbor Hall, and they were bringing in like med students from the college in town to come in and listen to the group sessions. And they were always asked at the end if they had anything to say, and most of them were just like, "Wow, I didn't." These are, they were basically saying, "Wow, these are like normal people. They're not like, they're just having a hard time with things." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's you think, for me, when I was younger, alcoholic was, the guy with the brown paper bag, stumbling around everywhere. But I was a pretty damn badass alcoholic for a long time without the paper bag.
Yeah.
I was just hung over all the time, and showing up to work drunk, and I looked like a normal person unless you smelled my breath.
Yeah, 100%, and, culturally speaking too, I mean, I live in an area where, Wisconsin, we drink. Wisconsin drinks, and they drink heavy and hard. The town I grew up in, for instance, we had 350 people maybe in the town I grew up in, but we had
Mm.
7 bars.
Oh, 7. Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, that cultural aspect too, it gets up there and bites it sometimes too because it's so normalized in so many ways.
Yeah. Well, every other commercial is a beer commercial,
Oh yeah.
and then you go drive through our city here, it's there's either a liquor store or a pot store on every corner.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. I'm pro freedom. Do whatever the hell you want, but it's absolutely there in your face all the time. It
Yep.
definitely can make it difficult.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it gets to the point where, people really have to decide for themselves, what can you do and what can't you do? What's going to affect your life in a negative manner,
Hmm.
and what is going to be something that's not, and really being able to differentiate those two. I have a lot of people, especially people that came through treatment when I was working in residential, and they'd be like, "Oh, I smoke pot, but I don't have a problem. I smoke pot, but I don't have a problem." And I was like, I'm not one to get in the marijuana debate. Michigan is legalized right above us. Minnesota's got some legalization. Illinois underneath us got legalization. And some people can, some people can't.
Yeah.
And that's what I would tell my clients. You have to look in the mirror and make that hard decision for yourself.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, you got to be honest with yourself. I've been in treatment with people, and I know guys that were on meth or cocaine, and then go out and have a few beers on the weekend and never think twice about it. So
yeah.
I, there's I started in the AA group, and this, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but I started and there were abstinence or nothing. If you're doing anything, but then it got too much. It was like they're anti-Suboxone, they're anti anything that wasn't complete abstinence. Meanwhile, they're chugging pots of coffee and smoking cigarettes like, like it's saving their life. And
Yep.
I kind of stepped, I was like, okay, this is kind of silly. Like if somebody's life is improving, and whatever was causing the problems, they're eliminating, whether gradually or right now, I
Hmm.
support them. And I feel like that's how it should be. But I've seen too many people, like, I've had people on the podcast about the Sinclair method, where they take
Yep.
the naltrexone an hour before they drink, and they've weaned themselves off it. Katie is a great podcast where, she's been sober, I think, 5 years now.
Hmm.
And some people just don't like it. And that's
Yeah.
okay. You don't have to like it. Is
Yeah.
my life improving?
Yeah. And it's, the thing about it is that individually, us as people, we're all so different, and what works for one is not going to work for the other. I worked in some places that were definitely absolute sobriety, and that's what I would have to preach. However, I personally am much more harm reduction model myself when it comes to that. um you're going to get sober however you're going to get sober.
Mhm.
I didn't go to AA, I didn't go to NA, I didn't go to treatment. I did individualized counseling because that's what I needed.
Yeah.
I went through a lot of domestic abuse. I had to deal with some trauma. I had to deal with some abandonment issues. Like, That's where I had to dig to get through. But some people need treatment. Some people need $1 million worth of treatment before they
Yeah.
finally get it. It's so complex, and the variables out there are just so many. I mean, I think sharing ideas of what worked for me, what worked for you, that's amazing. That's community. That's the kind of communication we all need. But to be like, you need to stay sober and you need to not drink and you need to do it this way, those are things we definitely need to get away from.
So pardon my French, but fuck yeah.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
100%.
Jesus Christ. You know, I felt like such a failure when I got into AA. That fellowship was so welcoming and so awesome. And again, this
Mhm.
isn't me hating on AA. So those of you again who are listening to this, sit the fuck down.
Calm
I'm
down.
not saying that. I'm just saying it was so good and I felt so good. But then I would fail, or I was told I failed because I drank. But I came right
Yep.
back to the meetings, and then the failures just felt like too much. I remember I did 2 months. I did 60 days in treatment, and I went home and I was drunk 4 hours later. And the amount of failure that I felt just from doing it, and then you just threw 60 days away. You know, that was the feeling that I was carrying with me. Like
Yeah.
that was all for nothing. And that's bullshit. It wasn't. If I could have talked to myself, well, I don't know this. But I feel like if somebody would have given me a different message, it was like, okay, so you came home, you tried it again. Let's get back on it. You got 60 days minus one. Let's keep going on to day 62 or whatever, and keep it going.
Yeah.
That might have helped me. I don't know.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that is the type of positivity and encouragement we need within reason. I mean, we can't
Sure.
always let things slide. I mean, we always have to be held accountable to some degree, but yeah, why are we going to just pound somebody into the dirt and into the mud and shame them and say, "No, you have to say this, you have to do this,"
Mhm.
when no, they don't,
No.
you know? Like, definitely, I totally get what you're saying. I hear a lot of people that come through, and I still get that sometimes too. I have sorry, my dog's in the background here. I have, family members out there that look at me and they're like, "No, you are" sorry,
That's okay.
baby dog. Um, family members out there that are like, "Oh, no, you're a loser. Like, you're not worth anything. You're living off the system, like,
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, you haven't talked to me since 2008. You don't know anything about my life now. Like, what's the deal?
Yeah.
And there's nothing you're going to do about it. Some people are going to hate the way you recover. Some people are going to hate the way you do your own sobriety. But again, fuck them.
Yeah.
If
Fuck
those
off.
are the, yeah, if those people are going to act that way, then those are the people you don't need in your circle.
Yeah. Yeah. It really irritates me on social media where people they don't know anybody. You know what I mean? Like you've never met this person and you want to come in and start telling them what they did wrong. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you know what they did wrong? You have no idea. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's why it's man, they I let them push my buttons and I shouldn't, but um God, they're okay. So I'll say this. So there's a guy, I won't mention his name, making the rounds again, and he might find you too, just so if he hasn't already.
Okay.
And he's making his rounds, and he sends links to speaker meetings, and he regurgitate his 14,000 some odd days sobriety as if it gives him superiority for people. I don't want that kind of recovery.
Yeah.
That is miserable. And it's like, you're trying to tell me I need to be like you. No, thank you, dude. I am not bouncing around to people's feeds trying to look and point out what they're doing wrong when they're
Yeah.
just talking about what's going on in their life. You can take that recovery, turn it sideways, and shove it straight up your butt.
Yep. And I
Sorry.
think that right there is no, I think it's a perfect example of somebody that may be in recovery, that may be sober. However, they're not dealing with all their other shit.
Yeah.
Because there's
Miserable.
a reason that
Mhm.
they're pushing all that other shit out there. They need validation, they need a cosigner, they need somebody to be like, "Oh, you are the recovery guru. You're doing so well. I want to be just like you."
Yeah.
So they can feel good about themselves, which I mean, goes back to some of those codependent traits. I'm a huge person about codependency. I think codependency underlies addiction pretty much to a T. But yeah, there's something that's still broken that usually people in that situation have yet to acknowledge. Not reflective enough to get there yet.
I like that. Definitely appears to be using needing validation.
Yeah. Yep.
Look what I can do.
Yeah. Look what I can do, right?
Yes, yeah.
Exactly.
That what was his name from Mad TV? Not Stewie. Stewart.
Stuart,
Stewart.
yes.
Look what I can do.
Look what I can do.
That's him.
Yeah.
That is that guy.
For
So
sure, and I think wherever you are, you're gonna run into those people because we got some ones locally here too that are the same way, and I'm just like, "Look," I tell people that hit the meetings with those people in there, I'm like, "Take them with a grain of salt, get the
yes,
good stuff that you can from them, and leave the rest of the shit behind because you don't need
yeah.
it."
No, no, don't let them live rent free in your head. God damn, that's a hard
Exactly.
thing. That's a hard thing to do. I was out laying in the sun today with Miley, and I had a work argument in my head with somebody from work, and I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing right now? It's a beautiful day out. You're enjoying the sun, and you're going to have a fake argument in your head." You just gotta. Those are things you learn, though. I think as you go out and catch yourself in it. And I was
Yeah.
pissed. I'm letting there all by myself in my head, pissed off at the world, at this person, and it's like, God dang, dude, just stop.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Definitely. I think that is one of the great things about that self-awareness and that reflection that we get to grow in our recovery and in sobriety.
Sure.
Because you call yourself out on the bullshit now too,
Yeah. We had a
which
we
is
had
the
a
beautiful part.
It is. It is so nice. So talk a little bit more about codependency, if you would.
Oh my gosh, codependency. We could talk about codependency for days, okay? Codependency, I personally, okay, and I'm not the guru on everything, okay? Don't think so. But for me, codependency, I have never met an addict, an alcoholic, a person in addiction that is not codependent to some degree. Okay. I definitely think it's one of those underlying things. And I also think that there's usually, some kind of trauma attached to that as well. But um, really trying to get your own validation from someone else is really what that comes down to. Not feeling good enough about who you are or knowing who you are enough. So, therefore, you are going to attach yourself and pull aspects of other people into you to try to complete who you are.
Hmm.
So when I think about codependency, when I think about addiction, there was a spoof movie that came out. God, I'm old now. It was many years ago. Kung Pao Enter the Fist, like hiya,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Where the guy on there, the ninja, like punches a hole through a guy, right? And you can like see that gaping hole through them. So when I look at like myself or anybody else in addiction with deep codependency issues, we have that hole right here in our chest, and we are trying to put a band-aid on a bullet hole. We're trying to fill that hole up with anything possible that could be there, whether it's love, relationships, sex, food, substances, whatever it may be. And there's a piece of us missing. There's something broken there. And with codependency, I think really it comes down to, you know, codependency lives in the world of gray. Okay. It's not black. It's not white. It's not right. It's not wrong. Okay. In codependency, 2 plus 2 can equal 5 sometimes. As fucked up as that sounds. But when you start looking at those codependent issues, it's really about being afraid to be you, being afraid to be that authentic self, not feeling like you're good enough, not feeling like you're wanted. Um, and also the flip side of that codependency, you have two people on those terms, okay? Because it's a tango, it's a dance. Okay. So you have your giver and your takers. Okay. And those roles can be switched up, back and forth, upside down, whichever way you want to look at it. Any kind of relationship you can have with another human being can be a codependent relationship, whether it's lovers, friends, coworkers, cousins, family, mom, child, whatever it may be. And it can be its own addiction within itself. Because for a lot of people who have codependency issues and have a loss of control, codependency and those behaviors that we learn from that give us some sense of holding the reins, right? If
Hmm.
my life is completely out of control, if I can do something to control you, then I'm okay. So, an example of this in my own personal life, okay, would be back in the day, right? So, with a past relationship of mine, okay, I had my own addiction issues. My partner at the time was definitely an addict, multiple substances, but alcohol was the primarily one, right? So, because I was the enabler in that relationship, right? Because I just want somebody to love me, right? So I'm going to do everything I can to make you love me. I'm going to be useful as hell, right? So I would be the one like, I'm going to go down to the gas station, I'm going to pick up your beer, whatever, okay? But really, I don't want people seeing me go to the gas station looking like an alcoholic, picking up a 12-pack twice, 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to try to get smart about it. I'm going to go and I'm going to pick up that 30-pack and I'm going to save the ring from the 6-pack. Okay. And I'm going to put the beer into the ring in the 6-pack,
Oh,
put it in the
wow.
fridge, and I'm going to hide the rest of the beer in the dishwasher that I'm not allowed to use because it costs too much money. Okay. Codependence. Okay. Now I have some control because I have all the beer and now I get to dole it out to you how I see fit.
Okay.
Okay. So it kind of brings it back to some of those control issues. But my partner, on the other hand, was like, I'm going to drink. I want to drink. You're going to go get my beer. That's my control over you.
Okay.
So if that makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, codependency really is kind of that ugly thing that sits underneath a lot of addiction, a lot of relationships. Again, doesn't depend what it is. It's not always the typical domestic relationship that we always think about when we think about codependency. My partner and I always joke about writing a screenplay for a animated series, kind of like Family Guy or American Dad, except
Mhm.
we're going to label it The Domestics. And it's everybody's favorite, domestic couple that, are arguing every other day, throwing the shit out the windows. And all of a sudden here you hear whoop, whoop, and the cops are there at least once a week. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, but it is one of those things that runs in, and sometimes it comes off kind of as those funny episodes where you just see that couple fighting all the time. They get back together. You're like looking at yourself like, what the hell are these people doing? And then you have the scary side of codependency, which can lead someone to sitting in the back of a pickup truck with a rifle pointed up to somebody's window, waiting for somebody to go across because they're so obsessed with their partner that they're going to do something potentially horrible and dangerous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And take it to that extreme. And that is the part of codependency I think that people don't always hear about. And I think addiction and everything goes right hand in hand with that because, again, we're trying to numb out, we're trying to cope. We don't want to feel all those nasty feelings that come with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you explained it pretty well. I know there's a lot of these terms that are thrown around like narcissist and codependency and trauma. And I think
Yeah.
people might have like, before I started listening to like Gaber Mate and other
Hmm.
people talking about trauma, I always assumed trauma was getting your ass kicked all the time as a kid, or I thought that was trauma. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or a woman, God forbid, being raped, something that's trauma. But
Yeah.
there's a lot more to it than that. And the way he explained it has really opened my mind in my eyes to what these words really mean and how trauma has a million different faces.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And another one that people don't always look at is that generational trauma. That trauma that has rolled down from generation to generation. I
Mm,
mean, you think back and look at your parents and your parents' parents and their parents, there was some fucked up shit that was going on.
sure.
You know what I mean? So that stuff rolls down, I mean, just tenfold as well. Where I live and in the course of my work, I work with a lot of Native Americans. And there is a great deal of that historical trauma that has rolled down there as well. So there's a lot of cultural aspects to it too.
Yeah, crazy. And when you dive into this stuff, and people don't have time to do it. That's why I think podcasts and things like this are important. So, we sit and talk about this for half an hour, 45 minutes. People have time to listen to that. And I've talked about this before. I learned, my great grandmother, she was raised not to show emotion and not to
Hmm.
feel feelings, not to think about it.
Yeah.
You just go do something else. And that's how she raised me, was to, when mom and dad said they were coming to visit me, and I'd sit out by the window and wait for them to come. And every car that wasn't theirs, I'd get more and more sad. Well, just don't think about it. Go play with your toys. Just don't think about it, Scotty. It's okay. Just don't think about it. And
Yeah.
so I learned at a young age to try not to think about it. And then I found alcohol, which did a phenomenal job of not helping me not think about anything.
Yeah.
Right. So grandma was doing the best she could. And it wasn't grandma being a bad person, but
Yeah.
she created a form of trauma. Like I couldn't deal with my shit because of grandma. And it's
Yeah.
not, I don't have resentment toward her for that. I just realize that now because I've put the work in and kind of dug through my stuff. It sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks
Oh, it
ass.
does. It does. It
But
does. hardcore. And I mean, and those are the ways that, the people before us learned to survive.
Yeah.
I used to go on spiels, believe it or not, in residential when I would do groups. And one of the ones I always went on is like, look, I was like, the fact that you are here and alive today gives testament and proof that the shit you were doing worked. You're
Yes.
alive. You survived. Like all those fucked up ways that you learned to live and cope and deal with all that shit out there. Was it fucked up? Yeah, of course it was. But it suited you well till now. But
Wow.
at one point or another, you have to make the decision whether or not you're going to just keep surviving or if you're going to make the choice to live and actually have a life. And when you choose to live and have a life, you need to learn how to take those traits and those survival tools that you had before and switch them over. You
Yeah.
either learn how to switch them over for good or you need to find a different way to do it. And I think that's one of the really hard parts about it for people too. And they have so much guilt and shame
Hmm.
and regret and anger, self-loathing, all those feelings that come together because, oh, I did this and I did this and I'm just such a shitty person. And I'm like, okay, you did those things. I don't think you're a shitty person. Did you do some shitty shit?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, you did.
Yeah.
But that's what you did. That's not who you are.
Right. And I haven't, I don't have it accessible. I wrote it in one of my big books. It was something I learned in treatment, and I'm probably going to switch them. But guilt is I did bad, and shame is I am bad.
Yes.
Right. So,
Yep.
like, there's a big difference between doing bad and being a bad person.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think now I never was a bad person. I did some bad things and said some things to people I shouldn't have said, and done a whole bunch. Took money that I shouldn't have taken. I've done a lot of bad things, but
Mm-hmm.
what you just said right before that too is pretty powerful. It's like I was doing what I had to do to get to the next day,
Yeah.
and because I really fucking hated myself. I mean, and I think a lot of people. I think that goes with the territory and addiction. I didn't like myself.
Oh yeah. Yeah, me either. Like I was just miserable. I thought I was the biggest piece of shit in the world.
Like, yeah,
Like I did some shisty, shady shit. Like and to all of the people that I love the most, because
yeah,
regardless of what I do to them, they're still gonna love me one way or another. They may not like me, but they're gonna still love me. But yeah, and you know, I just recently had a conversation with a family member of mine, and she's stuck back in that old shit. And I looked at her and I was like, look, I am who I am now. I'm not who I was before. And honestly, I'm not ashamed of it anymore. Because
yeah,
had I not done all that fucked up shit, I would not be who I am or where I am today.
right,
And that's just the truth of it. And, I think she's more upset at me because she feels I didn't get punished or
mm,
I didn't end up with the consequences that she felt I should have ended up with.
yes,
However, she doesn't necessarily know all the consequences I've dealt with because we don't always share all that shit with everybody else. You know what
sure,
I mean?
yeah,
So again, there's that big kind of picture of, what people perceive and what the reality of the situation is.
yes, yes, and I know there's people that think that I probably got off, a little easy.
Yeah.
And there's people too that just want, like, even in the recovery community on X, there's like people that want you to suffer more, because you
Yeah.
made a choice one time. Like I post a lot about, like, I don't know when I'm ever going to get my driver's license back. I got 4 drunk drivings under my belt, and
Yeah.
even if I do get it back, it's going to be a year of a blow and go, and my insurance is going to be ridiculous. It's just going to be a financial, and I don't think that's fair. You know what I mean? To lose it forever? No, I don't think that's fair. I didn't hurt anybody or whatever. And I've got a couple people that have been through, or at least say they've been through addiction, and they're just like, well, don't do the time. You can't do the time. And it's like, so I got busted 4 times. I could have been busted 5,000 times.
Yeah.
And I say to them, I'm like, how many times did you drink and drive and not get caught? If this is how you truly feel,
Mm-hmm.
for every one of those times, go turn yourself in for each one of those times if you did the crime. So you just didn't get caught as many times as I did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't understand why we want to bury people so much. And this isn't, and see, when I say this, somebody's going to listen to this. They're like, he's justifying drunk driving. That motherfucker is justifying drunk drive. No, I am not. I'm just saying I fucked up more times than I should have. I am very happy and very grateful that I did not hurt anyone or myself. And that should be inconsiderate. I shouldn't. This is going to be years and years of not seeing baseball games that my kids are going to, and not being able to have a job. Anyway, this isn't me whining. I'm just saying we want to bury people, when they just need a little bit of help.
Yeah.
And my life is very happy. I'm going to make it work one way or another. That's fine. But definitely to what you said, like you didn't get punished enough.
Yeah.
You don't know how much we've suffered on the inside and how much there isn't anybody that could punish me more than I punished myself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Especially when those thoughts, because I've had those dark, intrusive thoughts. You know what I mean? When things are so bad and you're like, oh, I'm such a fucking loser. If only I would have done this. And now this is just
Yeah.
ruined forever. And like, yeah, this shit haunts you and it follows you. My partner, my other half, he's also in recovery and he fucked up and relapsed and got his fourth OWI here in Wisconsin, which is a lifelong loss of your license. I think after 10 years, I think he could try to get an occupational. And that definitely affected our life and our
Oh,
ability to get kids places, to do things, for him to have a sense of freedom, to even just go to the damn doctor. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And
Go to the
I have watched
therapy that you need. Go
exactly.
to the AA meetings you need.
Yep, and just rip apart his self-confidence, his
Yep.
self-esteem, his sense of who he is as a person, what his worth is. And, you know, it is, you know what? Yeah, he fucked up. Yeah, he fucked up big time. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? But he's paying the price for that shit every single day.
Every day.
Every day.
Every fucking day. I have
Exactly.
never I have never seen, well, I don't know this because okay, I'm going to try to word this carefully here. I've never seen anybody get put in a cage and just to sit in a cage and come out and be cured of a disease. They might
Yeah.
be in that cage and get some therapy or read some books or get some help while they're in that cage, like in prison, not jail. Prison, you
Mhm.
can get a little bit of help. They might
Yeah.
have done that, but being put in a cage and losing all these privileges has never cured anybody of addiction. In fact,
Yeah.
I would argue most of the consequences keep people in it longer because it's fucking hard. You said something too that I've never been able to verbalize before, but yeah, it is embarrassing for me to have Miley drive me everywhere.
Yeah.
I can't go anywhere without Miley having to drive me. You know what I mean? And that's well, you don't do the time. I know they're out there. I can already hear them just murmuring. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just think we can do better because it seems like the legal system is saying it's a choice. The medical field is saying it's a disease and it's not your choice. And these two are completely at odds with each other.
Oh yeah. 100%, definitely. And, hopefully over time, hopefully that stigma will start to drop. I mean, I think we're seeing it more prevalent in mental health,
Yeah,
first and foremost, but I'm hoping that some of that's going to trickle down from the mental health and come through on the substance use side.
I hope so.
You know what I mean? But again, it takes years for the culture to shift and to change. And the only way we can really do our part is like what we're doing right now is just
Right.
talking and having those conversations about it and putting information out. I think for me, my blogs, my posts, the things that I'm doing right now, one, I just love doing it because it's a way for me to just get that release and have some self-care. But it is really just about putting the information out there because people don't know. And then when we just have people out there just assuming what the issues are, what the problems are, what the solutions are, it's not good for anybody.
Yeah, and I'm Only Human says, I know there are consequences for our actions, but to keep people down because of their mistakes is bullshit. Years pass and people are still being held accountable for their past. It's
100%.
really hard to move on from your addiction past when you are being carried down by these fines. I don't know when I'm going to get my fines paid off. Fuck,
Oh,
it's
good
been,
Lord. Yeah.
and then the license thing and what comes with that. It's just, you're taking away the people's ability to live. And again, this isn't a bitch. I'm going to leave it alone now because I'm just going to, there are good things. I will say in our
Yeah.
area where I work, we have a doctor, one of the therapists. He's involved in what's called treatment court. I'm sure you guys have treatment court or drug court or
Yep,
sobriety
yep.
court.
We're definitely getting some more up here.
Okay, yeah. And so these guys, I know one client, he got OWI, I think it was either 3 and 4 or 4 and 5 within like a month of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Dude got to get into sobriety court and got his license back restricted after 45 days. That is what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, yes.
That's what I'm talking about. And I think it's with a blow and go. So you
Yeah,
got to
probably like
figure,
in Toxalock, yep.
yeah. So that's doing it. So you got to, and they had no other choice because they make them go to, in the first phase, it's like, a therapy session and like 4 or 5 meetings a week. It's like
Yeah,
insane, what you have to do.
yeah.
And you couldn't make those things if you didn't have a license. You have to figure it out for 45 days and then you get it. That's incredible. That's a great system that's giving people a chance. And they claim high success with that. But,
Yeah.
not everybody lives, depending on what, you don't have that option. I think we could do more. I think we could do more of those things.
Yeah,
Sorry.
definitely. I've seen some great success with treatment courts, OWI court, wellness court, wellbriety court, whatever you want to call it. A lot of the counties in Wisconsin are coming through with that. Unfortunately, where I live, we don't, which I don't know why. Um, but definitely seen some good results. And it also, I think, it kind of, I don't want to say weeds out, but it kind of weeds out the people that are
Yeah.
ready and aren't ready.
Yes.
And for the people that are ready and are motivated, it gives them every fucking chance in the world to
Yep.
get out there and reclaim some shit back for themselves.
Yes.
And
And
it's stringent, it's hard, they keep you busy as hell,
mhm.
but they're there for you. And really, I've seen a lot more of the treatment courts go towards that harm reduction model
Yeah.
and go towards like, hey, we just want you to be honest. We want to give you support. Be honest with us and we can work with you.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the big changes too. I'm also seeing that in probation here in Wisconsin.
Oh, good.
Okay, so people that are on probation now, okay, if you get caught smoking pot, you're not really going to jail. Okay, you're not going to get revoked. This isn't going to happen, but you also have to be honest about whatever's going on too.
Right.
They're not throwing people in necessarily for relapses anymore, as long as they're being open and honest and talking about things. And it seems like they're getting a better structure for getting people the help that they need.
Sure.
You know what I mean? They got to be offered treatment. They have to be offered this, whatever's the less restrictive care, whether it's outpatient, IOP, or if they're going to go into something like residential or more long term.
Yeah.
So I love those programs. I think they're amazing. I hope they continue to grow and flourish.
Me too.
I definitely have a lot of people in the field that I work with that are part of those programs or working those programs. We even have one up here now. We have a recovery jail pod program up in Vilas County, Wisconsin, where I live. And one of my buddies is one of the guys that goes in and does that. And it's great because at least they're getting something, they're
Mhm.
learning, they're growing. And the people that are ready for some of that stuff, ready for the information, ready to make a change, can transition out of jail into treatment, into sober living, whatever's going to work best for them. And we're seeing positive results.
Yeah. Isn't it worth it though to do
Yeah,
that? I mean, even if you had 12 people in there and 1 or 2 of them are ready to make that better life, isn't that better than holding those 2 back with the rest of them that aren't ready? I mean,
100%.
fucking hey, dude. Like,
Yeah,
it drives me nuts, and I know how dangerous using drugs can be for that person and family members.
yeah,
Like when I was passed out drunk, if somebody broke in here, I wasn't saving anybody. I know all these things. I get that, but when I made that decision, when other people are ready to make that decision, we have to give them some rope like quickly
yeah,
because it's way too easy to say this is too fucking hard. I'm just gonna go fucking use, and if I make
yeah,
it, so what?
yeah, definitely. I've seen so many people come through and especially on the residential side, and they're gung ho, they're ready, they're excited. You see people come in from zombies to actual human beings again by the time they're ready to
Yeah.
leave, and they're so excited, and they get out there and they're looking for support and they're looking for resources, and then they just get smashed. Like,
Yes.
oh, we don't have this available, or oh,
Right.
you're over income, or oh, sorry,
Mm.
you use meth, you're not an alcoholic, we don't have a program for you.
Fuck. Or even just delaying sentencing and over and over and over and over and dragging this shit out. It took 2.5 years for me to get charged with my third OWI.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And okay, a better example. I just lost a very good friend, a brother of mine that I was in treatment with. He went back to the well of drugs and
Mm.
didn't come out. And this guy he got into a great job. He had a home. He was an electrician. He was making great money, but all this court stuff that kept coming back. This guy even paid out of pocket to go back and live into sober living because he made too much money. He paid rent to live at sober. He paid out of pocket for therapy, and we all know that ain't cheap.
Yeah.
He was trying, but the weight of the court systems and all the things hanging over his head, the unknowns that he
Yeah.
had no control over, that could at any moment they say, "Here's your court date, and you're going to jail for 6 months," or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was too much for him. And the dude is no longer here because he couldn't carry that weight any longer.
Yeah. And it's so sad, but it's so true. I've seen people too that have to go through the court process, and especially after COVID and after everything else happened, it's 2.5, 3 years out
Yeah.
that they're living with this black cloud over them, and it's nasty because some people just can't handle that what if. Oh my God, what if this happens and what if that happens? And then you have to make 10 plans on top of 10 plans on top of 10 plans, and that is stress.
Yep.
And your physical body can only handle that so much until something snaps and breaks. And that's when it's so dangerous, because that's when we lose people.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
All we can do, Belinda or Belle, is like you said, keep talking and
Yeah.
keep trying to, give somebody a few minutes of like, yeah, this sucks. I am going through this, but just keep talking, man. Connection is the opposite of addiction. Whether it's listening to a
Yes.
podcast
Hell
that you
yes.
relate to, or
Yeah.
calling somebody. I'm, I wasn't too thrilled when I saw my personal cell phone on my business card for work. But when I got that call yesterday from that client who was like, "Oh my, this happened and this happened," I was more than happy to sit there and talk for a few minutes, just to try to get them through a bad time.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, if you can find the courage to pick up the phone and make a call, there's somebody that's willing to listen and talk to you. We talk ourselves and say, "No, I don't want to bother them." You ain't
Oh
bothering
yeah.
somebody.
Yeah, that phone weighs 10,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're busy and I don't want to bother them. And then that comes down to what you're not good enough.
Yeah,
Like, we need to stop thinking that we're not good enough to get help,
yeah,
because
fuck
we
yeah.
are. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, I don't care if you're the dope dealer. I don't care if you're the person cooking batches of meth. I don't care if you're Breaking Bad itself. Okay? I don't care. All right? It doesn't matter what you did before. It matters what you want to do now.
Yeah,
And that's just pure and simple. You
yep,
know what I mean? Because if you're ready and you want to do something and you want to change your life or you want information, here, what can I do to help you?
yeah, yeah. And my life sucks. My life sucks. This isn't going good. This and that. Well, it doesn't have to be like that anymore.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can be different. What is that? The past is history. Tomorrow's a mystery. So live for today, type thing.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
and we were
Because you
talking.
never know. You never know how it's going to go.
No, you don't. And that's kind of the downside of it too, because you can't tell people, give it 3 months and your life's going to change. You don't fucking know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's too hard to tell. But I think we said it before we came on air. Do something today that tomorrow you will thank you for. And you said 5 years ago you never would have thought you'd be where you are, right?
Oh, yeah. 100%. Like,
Yeah.
no thought process in history could have ever gotten me to where I am now. Like, never would have thought of it in a million years.
Yeah. So
So,
before we go, you do a blog. Talk a little bit about that, where people can find it. If they've
okay.
enjoyed this conversation, which I don't see how you couldn't have enjoyed this conversation. It's been fucking great.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. So, yeah, so I started a blog. It's called Progress is Progress, Mile or Millimeter. And that's truly how I believe in shit. I
Hell
don't
yeah.
care. I don't care how far you make it, as long as you're trying. So really, I wanted to use my blog as really a sounding board to share with others what I've been through as a person in recovery myself, some of my experience as a counselor, and what that's like on the flip side of things. Just because I think counselors sometimes kind of get that My counselor. I don't want to talk to my counselor. They don't know what I've been through.
Yeah.
And kind of show the flip side of that. But really just a place to help educate, spark conversation, talk about things that aren't necessarily always talked about. I talk about sex and recovery. I talk about going from living that criminalistic life, living on the streets, being the plug, being this, being that, to learning how to use those tools as your good superpower powers instead of
Yeah.
your evil ones anymore. Um, I talk about the stigma of addiction recovery. I like to educate a little bit on what addiction really is, the stuff about the brain, the stuff about the body, post-acute withdrawal, you name it. I want to talk about a little bit of everything in there.
Oh, yeah.
So it's Progress is Progress, mile or millimeter. It's on Blogger. I also have my LinkedIn profile, which has a lot of those articles posted up in it too. I got going on X as far as trying to link up there as well and just get voices out and be heard. So yeah, definitely give it a read, check it out, share it. It's not for money. It's not to make money. Really, this is just my pet project, part of my passion and who I am.
Yeah. Amen to that. That's what this podcast what started for me. And I every time I get to sit down and talk with somebody awesome like yourself, it feels so damn good because I think we're doing something, and the DMs that I get from time to time really say that I needed to hear that today, or thank you for doing that. And you know, I your take on it, you're a counselor, and your views are really fresh, and I love it. I think it's opening. It's welcoming to people, not opening. It's welcoming to people because, man, like we said earlier, we'll find any reason to keep using. And
Yeah,
once somebody starts preaching to us without knowing us and telling us what we're doing wrong, and they have no idea who you really are, it's really hard to get them to buy in and to give themselves a chance, because that's what it is at the end of the day. You're not going to save anybody. You have to do it yourself, but we can
yeah,
arm you with tools and information.
yeah. Yeah, 100% exactly. So I'm just privileged, to be able to share and speak about it. And I think your podcasts are amazing, by the way. I've definitely been able to go back and listen to some of your past ones. I think the conversations you were looking to spark are amazing. Am a huge believer in ancient aliens, so I love the whole like
Woo!
alien motif. I'm
Hell
right
yeah.
there with you, buddy. Like that's my higher power, like Anunnaki,
Me
let's
too.
go.
Oh my God,
Um,
no shit. Wow.
Yes. So, which was
I got
always a trip to tell people in treatment, because they were like, "Who the fuck and what the hell?" I love it.
I got Enki on the wing disc right here on my neck.
Ah, nice. I love
Yep.
it.
And I got Thoth right
So
next to him. So yeah. Um,
beautiful.
hell yeah. No, and that's, I want to do, they say, and I'd heard from, and a friend just told me this too recently. Yay, alien says I'm human. Um, uh, I, I, I want to talk more than just recovery, because I'd like to do this more often. And so I like the paranormal side. Used to be huge into that or whatever. But that's really cool that you say that. Yeah, ancient aliens all the way. Go Anunnaki. I have one tattoo, and people think it's a swastika. It's not a fucking swastika. It's called a dingir, and it's the symbol for Anu, who is
Yeah.
Enki's father. So
Yeah, very cool.
yeah, it's upside down and backwards. I got it in my drinking days, so it needs to be fixed.
Buddy, I think we all got some of those one way or another.
Oh shit.
So, for sure. But
Well,
yeah, just universal energy and just putting out those positive vibes, man.
oh
I
yeah.
mean, these days it's what I've been made for, so I absolutely love it. I'm also a big autism person. I'm an autism mom, so I like to talk about that kind of stuff too. But yeah, we can just about go anywhere on any subject. Let it fly, wing it.
Well, we'll have to do it again, and I think maybe pull you on with some of my other friends that I do podcasts with. I think we could have a pretty good panel discussion on things.
Yeah, that sounds
So
great.
yeah, gonna keep your name close in the DMs. So
Perfect.
go have yourself a great day. I'm so pumped. I'm gonna go down and lift some weights. Oh, excellent stuff on the blog. Great show, says Ellie.
Awesome.
She's
Thank you,
always
guys.
around. You got Dorothy. No, not Dorothy. Sophia. Sophia as a picture. Gotta love that. So
Oh, I love it. Very cool. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for everybody who's listening.
yeah.
I'll definitely be posting this up on my stuff too. So thank you.
All right. Have a great day, Belle, and we'll talk soon, I hope.
All right, sounds good. See you next time.
Bye bye.